Hi, I'm Laura Blatzheim. I am the elementary counselor support for Richardson ISD. I am part of the counseling and prevention services team, which is also a part of student services. So I'm so excited to be here tonight. I'm going to be talking to you about the brain and behavior. A little bit about me before I get going. I have been in education for 31 years. I taught both junior high and elementary school. Most of my time was spent in elementary school teaching everything from grade 1 all the way up to grade 5. I was a campus counselor for 12 years in Richardson ISD before joining the district counseling team 8 years ago. I'm a graduate of all of our ISD schools. I attended Terrace Elementary, Richardson Junior High School, and Bertner High School. I have 5 children of my own who are all grown up or working or on their way through college. I also love reading, crafting, and spending time outdoors. So today we're going to be talking all about the brain and behavior. And just to get us started, just to kind of whet your appetite a little bit, I'm going to show you a little video clip from one of my favorite movies, both as a parent and as a counselor, that has a great scene that'll get us all started.
So, as it turns out, the green trash can is not recycling. It's for greens, like compost and eggshells. And the blue one is recycling. And the black one...
Riley is acting so weird. Why is she acting so weird?
What do you expect? All the islands are down.
Joy would know what to do.
That's it. Until she gets back, we just do what Joy would do.
Great idea. Anger, fear, disgust. How are we supposed to be happy?
Hey, Riley, I've got good news. I found a junior hockey league right here in San Francisco. And get this, tryouts are tomorrow after school. What luck, right?
Hockey?
Uh-oh, what do we do?
Guys, here, you pretend to be Joy.
Won't it be great to be back out on the ice?
Oh, yeah, that sounds fantastic.
What was that? That wasn't anything like Joy.
Because I'm not Joy?
Yeah, no kidding.
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did. Something's wrong.
Should we ask her?
Let's probe, but keep it subtle so she doesn't notice. So, how was the first day of school?
She's probing us.
I'm done. You pretend to be Joy.
What? Okay,
It was fine, I guess. I don't know. Oh, very smooth. That was just like Joy.
Something is definitely going on. She's never acted like this before. What should we do? We're going to find out what's happening, but we'll need support. Signal the husband. Ahem.
Uh-oh, she's looking at us. What did she say?
What? Oh, sorry, sir. No one was listening.
Is it garbage night? We left the toilet seat up. What? What is it, woman? What?
He's making that stupid face again.
I could strangle him right now.
Signal him again.
So, Riley, how was school?
Are you kidding me? For this, we gave up that Brazilian helicopter pilot?
Move! I'll be Joy.
School was great, all right?
Riley, is everything okay?
Sir, she just rolled her eyes at us.
What is her deal? All right, make a show of force. I don't want to have to put the foot down.
No, not the foot.
Riley, I do not like this new attitude.
Oh, I'll show you attitude. No. Stay happy!
What is your problem? Just leave me alone.
Sir, reporting high levels of sass.
Take it to DEFCON 2.
You heard that, gentlemen? DEFCON 2.
Listen, young lady, I don't know where this disrespectful attitude came from.
You want a piece of this, Pops? Come and get it!
Yeah, well, look.
Here it comes. Prepare the foot.
Keys to second position. Ready to launch on your command, sir.
Just shut up!
Fire!
That's it. Go to your room. Now.
Foot is down. The foot is down.
Good job, gentlemen. That could have been a disaster.
Well, that was a disaster.
All right. So that was just an interaction between Riley and her parents. I think there's a lot of layers to this. We could talk about it for a long time. I know as a parent, I've been here in this place, and I know many of you have possibly had some similar experiences with your own children. So tonight we're going to talk about what is happening in our brains when we have big reactions. We're going to learn some ways to have healthy interactions with our own children and how they can be successful in both home and at school.
So, as it turns
So some of our intended outcomes that we're going to go over tonight is that we are going to talk about how the brain interactions with emotions. I'm going to share with you an explanation of why children can't respond rationally in stressful situations. You'll learn some techniques for teaching children how to regulate their emotions, as well as strategies for improving interactions with children at home. And then we'll learn some tips for managing your own emotions so that you can be your best for your child. Also, while we're working through this, I want to remind you that we are in a safe place tonight for you to listen, learn, and grow. There are no dumb questions. Please ask and be respectful of both the speaker and the other learners. Hopefully, we can all learn something new tonight from one another. And in that, I don't know if anybody said already, but please go ahead and put your questions in the chat. Throughout this presentation, someone will be monitoring the chat for us. And so we can ask or find the answers to your questions as we go through here. To get us started, what is emotional regulation? There's another word that we sometimes use for that, and that's also called self-regulation. And it says in here that it's the ability to alter, diffuse, or control our emotions. We regulate to self-soothe or calm down when our stress response systems are activated. It's all about modification, not elimination, and finding balance. When we're regulated, we can see more easily, hear more easily, and then interact with each other in a better way. We're more in tune and we're more present. A child who is regulated can learn, empathize, reason, be self-aware, and solve problems. On the flip side, what is emotional dysregulation? Happens when a person's not able to regulate their emotions. Their ability to function is compromised and they can't meet the demands of their external environment. In the video we watched, you can see from looking at Riley that she is not okay. Her face and her body language show she's upset or angry about something. This happens when something causes us not to feel safe. I'm not saying she's feeling unsafe from her parents, but in the sense that something's happened at school or on the way to or from school that has upset her. She's in what we call the flood zone. Preparing our children for the road ahead instead of preparing the road for our children means teaching them how to identify their feelings, learn what triggers those feelings, and give them coping strategies to manage them in a healthy way. In order to do that, we must understand emotions ourselves. In order to do that, let's learn a few things about our brains. I want everybody to take a minute and just think about somebody you know who's struggling with emotional regulation. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's an adult, because I do think that as we're learning what our brains are doing and what is happening in our brains, it will also help us learn about our children. And obviously, we're at different developmental levels than our children are, but some of the same strategies and tools are going to help us all. We're going to start by watching another video, and this one explains about your upstairs and your downstairs brain. And he also gives you a really great way of explaining that downstairs brain and flipping the lid. He's going to talk a little bit about some different parts of the brain that are triggered whenever you are upset.
Hi, I'm John from Child Savers. I wanted to share with you some information about the brain and how it responds to stress in our lives. If you hold up your hand like this, we can use this as a model of our brain to help us understand it. Here, my wrist and my forearm are my brain stem. Controls heart rate, blood pressure, circulation, what we call your autonomic nervous system. All those things that happen in our body that we don't have to think about but happen automatically. Take your thumb and wrap it in here. My thumb is what we call your downstairs brain. Downstairs brain is really important for a lot of different reasons. When we're talking about stress, my downstairs brain is important for my survival instinct. What I do when I'm getting ready to fight, when I get ready to run, or I get ready to hold really still and wait for the danger to pass. That's my survival instinct down here, how I respond to stress. My upstairs brain, or cortical brain, is here. These are my fingers that wrap over my thumb. And my upstairs brain is important for a lot of different things, including relationship building and problem solving and delayed gratification, thinking about consequences, and even learning is housed here in our upstairs brain. And that's really important because if my survival brain hears a loud noise, then it might get ready to run or get ready to fight. But my upstairs brain can assess that loud noise and stop and think and try to figure out whether it was maybe just a car backfiring or a door slamming or a book falling to the ground. And that's important. When we get impacted by light stress, we flip our lid. And that flipping of the lid puts downstairs brain in charge. Nadine Burke-Harris has a saying that when I'm fighting a bear in the woods, I don't want to be in relationship building brain. I want to be in survival brain because that's what's going to keep me alive. Unfortunately, sometimes we flip our lid for reasons that we don't need to. And that means our relationship building brain is offline. Our thinking about consequences brain is offline. And when we flip our lid, when we're interacting with other people, whether it's a colleague or a coworker or a family member who's flipped their lid, who's in that survival brain, we have to remember that we're talking to that downstairs brain, and we have to help them soothe and calm, and only then can we talk about consequences. Only then can we talk about relationships. Only then can we expect a learning experience to happen. So using this way to think about what's going on in our brains during moments of stress and the brains of the people that we love and care about is really a useful way to think about that so we can have effective interactions and help people out in the critical moments of their lives. Thanks so much.
All right. I love.
Hi, I'm John.
Sorry. I love that example of the brain is using our hand signs. So this is how we teach kids in school about flipping their lid is we really talk to them about the different parts of the brain, but we also use the hand motions because with the littlest of kids, they can understand about flipping their lid and they can understand that, it's not them or something they have done, that it's actually something in their brain that is triggering that fight, flight, or freeze response. Something in their brain has triggered them to feel unsafe or dangerous. And it may not be that there's anything going on at school or at home in the moment that causes us to feel that way. But if we've ever felt that way in the past, something can happen that can trigger us. And sometimes it is very small things. We see in school sometimes a child can get triggered by something and we cannot figure out what on earth it could be. And it can be a small thing that just has reminded them of a previous incident. So on the next slide, which we're on right now, this is actually just a picture of the brain. And so when he was talking with his hand closed about the prefrontal cortex, you can see on my slide that that picture is that very top part of the brain, and that part of the brain is where our control is. And so that's the part of the brain that just kind of controls all of our thoughts and our actions, and our learning happens there. But down at the very bottom of the brain is what we call our amygdala, and it's like shaped like an almond. And there's a really great video that you can watch that kind of talks about the amygdala, and it's linked at the bottom of this slide. Well, it's in a tiny part at the base of our brain, and it's where we are learned to regulate fear, and it alerts us to danger. We need it to alert us to the sound of screeching tires so we can slam on our brakes to avoid a wreck. So that's a helpful thing that it can do. But it also fires sometimes when it doesn't need to, and this can cause a needed stress. Because in order to be able to get back to that top part of our brain, we have to be able to transfer information from our amygdala up there. We can't do that when we're triggered. Something else that's kind of unique about the brain is that it's not fully developed until we're 25 years old. And so that really explains a lot. I know it explains a lot about my own children who are kind of in their mid 20s. I have two that are, 27 and 29, but then my youngest one is 21. And he's still, you can still tell that he's not quite at that fully developed brain. At the same time, my daughter, who just turned 24, her brain's, she said she felt like it was a light switching on at some point this year of like, oh my goodness, like everything makes sense now. So this is just another slide that kind of goes over and talks about that upstairs brain and the downstairs brain. And I love this graphic as well for for talking to children, it's just a simple picture that looks like a house. Downstairs is where the important things live, our basic functions like breathing, strong emotions, and innate reactions to danger, like fight, flight, or freeze. It's kind of like the downstairs of the house, which is where we always find the basics. Our kitchen's down there, our living room's down there. Sometimes our bathroom is down there. And I know not all of you live in a two-story house, but this is, you can think of it as that living space in your house is the downstairs brain, where you eat, where you hang out. The upstairs brain is more complex. Thinking, imagining, planning, these things come from the upstairs brain. We use that brain to think critically, problem solve, and make good decisions. So I love this because I think about teenagers, they go to their rooms oftentimes, and oftentimes in our rooms at night, laying down on our bed is where we do our best thinking because we're in a calm place that we feel good about being. So in the video earlier, he talked about being in the flood zone. And so this is kind of what the flood zone looks like. It causes problems for all of us. When we get into that flood zone, we all react and act in ways we later regret. We give unfair consequences as parents. We say that first thing that pops into our heads without thinking about how the other person will receive it. This occurs in adults whose brains are mature. So kids have an even harder time managing the flood zone because their brains are not fully developed. As I said earlier, the brain's not developed until we're ages of 25. And so the area that connects that left and the right brain, which is that logical and creative side, is not developed until most kids graduate from college. So if you look at the flood zone scale, down at 1, which is when we're pretty much calm and we're able to think rationally, it's possible to use a coping strategy. But as we get up to 8, 9, or 10, rational behavior is not possible. So sometimes when we are mad or we're upset at our children and we say, you need to just calm down, really what we need to be saying is, we all need to just calm down. We all need to step back, take a break, and regroup. Here's what happens in our body in the flood zone. And this is true when we're upset about something or we're sad. We're also in the flood zone then because we're just not able to think correctly. But here's some kind of things that might happen. We might have a rapid heartbeat, we might be trembling or have a stomach ache. I know for me, when I'm angry or I'm upset, or I'm sad about something, or I'm just really anxious about something, I can sometimes get a stomach ache and then I just have that jittery feeling. It's kind of like the butterflies, only it's not a happy butterfly feeling. It's kind of a jittery feeling. Here's some reactions that kids might have when they're flooded. And I think back to my time in a classroom when a kid's upset, but I also think back at my own children when they're really angry and saying things like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. No one likes me. I hate you. I'm so dumb. These are some things that, when we as adults, we really want to try to speak truth to them and convince them otherwise. We might be tempted to say, we love you. That's not true. But saying things like that only makes it worse. Remember, what kids say when they're flooded isn't rational. So even though you say what is true, you can't rationalize with an irrational person. I love that line. You can't rationalize with an irrational person. But here's kind of another example about a positive and a negative response. So this little girl is sitting here and she says, no one likes me. And the wrong response would be, no, that's not true. You have so many friends. You might be able to say that in a little while, but instead it might be better to say something like, I understand how you might feel that way. Because when we sympathize and empathize, that lets them know that we care. It lets them know that we understand how they're feeling, and maybe they're going to talk more. Sometimes it just opens that door for kids to reach out and share just a little bit more. So flooded children don't just say irrational things, they do them too. They can act completely bizarre and their actions make no sense We know that a child's flooded when what they're doing won't get them what they want, but instead gets the opposite. Oftentimes, as adults, we want to respond right away. The most important thing we can do is take a step back, take a deep breath, acknowledge that we might be triggered, but getting our own feelings regulated first. If we get caught up in the flooded reactions of our kids, we can become flooded too, which never ends well for anyone. So some of the things that might happen when our children are flooded, they're not taking responsibility for their actions. They might lie. They might not be willing to apologize. So when you have kids and you have two kids who are bickering with one another, and you make them stop, and then you say, now you need to apologize right now, they're not going to be willing to do that because they're triggered, because you're triggered, and they're just not in that space to think rationally about why they need to apologize. They might blame themselves or others, and they might also exhibit some behavioral outbursts: hitting, kicking, yelling. Sometimes they throw things, ripping up their homework, shutting down, or just running away. And these are some kind of physical signs that also you might see. Their face becomes red, rapid breathing, lashing out at those around them. Again, when we talked about Riley and her interactions with her parents, you could see in that video that they were all triggered. Mom was the most calm. She sort of had an inappropriate reaction to her daughter, but then her father was not even paying attention. And so then when he starts interacting with her, she just gets madder and madder and madder, and he gets madder and madder and madder. And then she tells them to shut up, which might not be an appropriate reaction for her, but she was really triggered and she was really upset. So I think it's so important as parents that we really learn to manage our own feelings before we can help them. So our next section is we're going to move on and talk about how we can respond when our children are escalated. The most important thing is really taking care of yourself first. Now, if your child is in an unsafe situation, obviously we need to do something right away to create a safe zone for them. We need to make sure that they are safe, and then they're not going to harm to themselves or someone else. However, it's also important for us to just do a quick emotion check for ourselves, for us to take just a deep breath. And it's always a good idea to say, you know what, I'm going to take just a deep breath. Why don't you do that with me? They may not want to right then, but it's important for us to do that. So it's important for us to kind of name our feelings. Am I angry too? Am I scared? Am I triggered in some other way by their actions? I remember working with one of my counselors a few years ago who was really struggling to work with a particular grade level. And when I talked to her about it, she talked about how she was just triggered by them because of an incident that had happened to her in another time. And so we really had to talk through how she could regain control of her feelings when she was with them. So think that you're the adult in the room. So it's important for you to set that example for kids. Ask for help when you need it. Find another parent, another adult that you can ask for help, and then ask for a break when you're overwhelmed. It's always a good idea to say, can we talk about this in a little bit? Why don't we both go and calm down? I love this picture of the cell phone and the girl. You wouldn't let your phone get down to almost no battery. How many of, I don't know how many of you ever let your phone battery die. It's a rare occasion that I let my phone get below about 75%. So don't let that happen to you either. Self-care is a priority, not a luxury. The next thing I want to talk to you about is something called co-regulation. What it is, it's really mirroring or modeling what we want to see from our children. What we reflect is reflected back to us via mirror neurons in our brain. So they're just little neurons in our brain that tell us that what we're doing is going to be reflected back. These are nerve cells that activate when you perform an action, then witness someone performing the same action. As parents, our calm can be as contagious as the child's chaos. We can control our emotions in the room and let our children know that we will continue to be there for them no matter what their behavior. This is really hard for everyone to do this, but this is really important. And I think this modeling needs to happen when we're both not regulated and when we're regulated, and with our kids, especially when they're regulated. So, what it looks like is, for example, if my narrow eyes are narrowed, my kids' eyes are going to be narrowed. But when I'm co regulating, if I give them a warm, soft gaze, they're going to give me one back. For example, if I have my fists tightly clenched, theirs are going to be that way too. But if I pause and breathe, they're more likely to pause and breathe too. Another thing on here that I think parents, we tend to do this, is lecturing. When we're seeing that our kids are not regulating, lecturing is just going to sound like Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. So it's important that if we co-regulate, we just use fewer words. And then elevated volume. If we're loud and getting louder and louder and louder, so are our children, where it's better to just listen. Maybe not talk at all. It's okay to take a break and not to talk. Our second strategy that we're going to talk about is empathizing and problem solving. I love this one. So be sure and not skip the first couple of steps. Oftentimes we try to rescue our kids before their emotions can even get processed. So this one really helps them process their emotions. So see it. Maybe your child's trying to get their zipper to close. This happens with little kids and big kids. I've seen my 18-year-old try to fix their zipper, and it's just frustrating. So you might say, I can see that you're getting frustrated. Is your zipper not closing? Feel it. Say something like, your face is red. You look angry. Is that right? It's okay to ask for those questions. And then just pause. Wait for your child to say their piece. This may take a few minutes. They may never answer you, but that's okay. You've given them something to think about. And then consider these statements. Do you need a break? To try again? Do you need some help? Here's some strategies that you can use when a child is about to flip their lid. And the thing I love about this slide is this is so important that we practice these when our kids are calm, so that when they're flooded, they know what to do. You can have them help you make a list of a few of them that they find helpful. So, one of the most important things that any of us can do when we're flipping our lid is exercise. And that doesn't necessarily mean going and lifting weights, but it could mean going for a walk. It could be running in place. It could be just going outside and doing cartwheels in the grass or getting on a swing. But some kind of physical exercise is helpful for everyone. And that research has shown that that's one of the number one ways that can help people calm down. Find 5 things that you can see in the room. Just, that's a quick redirection of, can you find 5 things you see in the room? And I know, like, when I go on trips with my family, we used to play the can you spot game, and we would try to find things on billboards or in cities or in the countryside, and we would make lists. And then we would relate it to, when you get really upset or mad or something, this is a good activity to do, because it really just kind of, the goal is to kind of flip that thinking in that brain. Coloring or doodling, chewing gum, taking a break, deep breathing, listening to calm music, blowing bubbles. So, as a counselor and as a teacher, I always had bubbles with me all the time. When I was at Big Springs at last, I discovered that that was kind of the magic thing is I just carried bubbles around. And when kids came in the morning and were crying because they didn't want to go to class, well, I get the bubbles out and blow them for a few minutes. If kids were, not regulated, I could just start blowing bubbles. And after a few minutes, they would watch the bubbles and then they would want to come blow the bubbles too. Which when you're blowing bubbles, you're practicing breathing. This is not meant to be a consequence time. When someone's not regulated, it's meant to be a time to calm down. And there might be a consequence later about their behavior, but it's important to give that consequence or that, have that discussion about their behavior when everyone is calm. And I think, if we practice some of these activities with our kids, finding out what they like. Some kids really love to color, some kids don't. So finding out what they like and setting them up for success when they are upset as well. Another thing that's important is what we call the reality check. And in this one, it's just using words. So moralizing, lecturing, and long rationalizations won't sink in. So instead, you can say, I hear you saying, I need you to do blank. Avoid using the word but. It signals they are compromising. Instead, say something like first, then. So if we're trying to get them to redirect, it's helpful just to say first, then. Instead of blank, you can do blank. I can see that you are upset. How can I help? I can see that you're really angry. How can I help? I can see that you're really red in the face. Would you like to take a break? Would you like to go for a walk? Never argue or accept excuses. Your first offer is your only offer at this point. Repeat it and don't compromise it because it's an endless road of compromises at that point. So you kind of become like a broken record. So first, clean out the dishwasher, then you can play a game. So that I love this one. This one's hard as well. The next one is about calm spaces. Set aside a place in your home that your child can go to calm down or take a break. Have this space be in a different place than a timeout spot. So timeout spots are sometimes used by parents as a place for a child to go when they are receiving a consequence. And kind of the rule of thumb on a timeout spot is really like 1 minute for every year that they're alive. So when they're 5, the limit should be 5 minutes at most. It should not be an all-night experience because they will forget why they're there in the first place. Really, the goal is just a 5-minute timeout. However, if they're not regulated, it's important for them to calm down first. Be available to co-regulate with your child to help them calm down, breathe, and get to a place where you can talk calmly. It will help everyone. As they get older, it's okay for them to go to their room and calm down, and sometimes that's probably a better idea, just to give them a few minutes, but let them know that you're going to come see them in a few minutes and, talk about it. Practice activities they can do during their break that we talked about before, such as breathing, journaling, or coloring, holding a fidget. Something I really encourage parents to do is avoid using devices during this time, unless you're using an app such as Calm or a coloring app that you're doing together or listening to calming music. Because if a kid goes to, a calm space to calm down and all they do is get on their phone and start texting their friends, that's not going to calm them down. Or getting on a video game or something, that's really not calming. So it's also letting them know that, oh, I can just get out of this whatever is going on here and go to my room and do my own thing. Identifying triggers. So a trigger is anything that creates an unwanted feeling. These are things that can happen in school settings, they can happen with friends, or in social settings, and they can be parental things. This is kind of where I start for this. I help them by giving them a definition of kind of what a trigger is, something like grades or getting in trouble at school, learning differences, issues with friends or personal relationships. Social media is a really big one. And I would say as a counselor, this is the one I hear about most often happening. Parent pressure. Sometimes parents put undue academic pressure on their children, which we're going to talk a little bit about. And then family dynamics, maybe sibling rivalry, or maybe mom and dad are having some difficulties. Maybe there's an extra person living in the house, a grandparent or someone that just adds an extra layer of stress. Here's some questions you can ask when you become triggered or your child is triggered. Do you become triggered while taking a test? When you get in an argument with someone? When you're called out in class? This can be true if a child has a learning difficulty or if they're just really shy. You know, when they're called out in class, that can be really embarrassing and it can be really triggered. I think my thing just stopped. Hold on. Hopefully it'll come back up. I believe that my it just muted or it reset. Let me reshare my screen. My apologies for that. All right, hopefully you can see that again.
We can, yes.
Okay, thank you. Triggers can be both internal and external. Internal things are things like an academic assignment or a test, maybe a certain class period, math. A lot of times children might be triggered when they only go to math or when they go to reading, especially if that's an area of struggle. I've had incidences where kids really hate going to music class or even PE because PE is really busy and loud and that can be really triggering. Or smells or sounds that remind them of a negative experience. Some internal triggers are things that have them thinking negative thoughts about themselves, such as I'm no good, I'm stupid, memories of traumatic experiences, or thoughts of what others have said. If you fail this test, then I'm taking your phone. They're just thinking about that. And so instead of it being helpful, it triggers them. All right, the next section is some activities that we're going to learn about just working with children to identify triggers, as well as just working with them and building relationships within your family. The first one is called Change the Channel, and it's linked in the slideshow. And really what this is it kind of relays their trigger to a remote control, because you know a remote control has buttons, and so it kind of we kind of talk about on a remote control when we don't like a TV show or we don't like something we're watching, we can just change the channel. And I know that we don't change the channel like we used to, but it still is the same thought process of if we're not happy with something, we can change the channel, and we can do that in real life with our thoughts. If I'm not happy about something, I can just change the channel. Maybe if I'm having a negative thought about something, then maybe I need to change the channel on that. How can I think about it in a more positive way? And so a thought activity could be, what is my trigger? So looking back to that triggers list, what's my thought about the trigger? How am I feeling about it? Kind of how intense on the scale of 1 to 10, and which strategy should I use? As part of this changing the channel, there's an activity called Happy Thoughts List. And that's really just making a list of things that make me happy as well as thoughts that make me happy. It's also kind of taking those negative thoughts that we might have in our brains and turning them into positive thoughts. I love this next one. This is something that we all should do. And whether we actually draw a picture or just have a photo somewhere, this is something the whole family can enjoy. So I want everybody right now to think of a place that makes you feel calm. You may have been here before, or it may be a magical place in your mind. Just go there. What does it look like? What does it smell like there? What does it feel like? Is anyone that with you? In this activity, you're just going to draw the place like you see it in your mind. Make it colorful, add details to make it just like you want it to see it. Now close your eyes and imagine you are there. See yourself in this place, feeling completely calm and relaxed. Whenever you feel scared, worried, or unsafe, you can just go back to your safe place. All you have to do is close your eyes and you can be there in a few minutes. I do this frequently. Now I have photos of my happy place. I've never actually tried to draw them, but I think that would be a great activity to do with them. So these are some of my happy places that I think about often. One of them is, a couple of them are in the mountains. One of them is fly fishing. I like to fly fish, and that's something my husband and I have discovered together. As our kids have grown up, we've kind of started thinking about what we want to do when we retire, and so we really love fly fishing. Then I love to go to the beach, and that's just something I picture in my mind as being somewhere on a beach, just hanging out. Those are my happy places that I go to often. The next slide we're going to talk about is just helping kids be able to identify their feelings. There are so many different ways we can do this. There are a lot of books that talk about feelings and talk about processing feelings. With younger kids, we think about teaching them simple feelings like happy, sad, angry, or scared, or upset, or mad. And so it's really simplistic. And some things you can do is just have them, on paper plates, make their faces, and then talk about them and talk about ways that they can help those feelings that they're having. A couple of other things is a simple rating scale, and there's a picture of one on the slide of like 1 to 10. And you can just have this, if you want to put it on your refrigerator or keep it somewhere. And then when your kids are upset, is kind of thinking about where they're feeling on that scale. Usually I have it flipped, and 1 is the happy and 10 is the most intense. But it can also be that 1 is the angry, and 10, you want to be at a 10 with your feelings of happiness. A couple other things are feelings wheels. So in my slide are linked some feelings wheels. And I don't know if I can pull one up if it'll show, but one of them is huge, and it has feelings on the inside, and then it has 2 more rings of feelings going around it. And it's called the Gottman's feelings wheel, and it just goes from simple feelings, and it really helps explain them in a more tangible way. Sometimes we're excited, but are we surprised excited? Are we excited nervous? Are we excited? What kind of excited are we? So these are just some other ways that really help us and help our families identify our feelings. Helps with those conversations. The next activity is called 5 on and 5 off. So I want everyone to do this with me right now. I love this activity, and it's really important that we do this together so we can practice it. So I want you just to think about a feeling you're having right now. Maybe you're hungry, maybe you're tired, maybe you're, not feeling very happy after something that happened that day. So keep it in your mind, and I want you to open your hand and put your feeling in your fist. Put it right in the center and squeeze as tightly as you can while I count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your fist and relax your arm, releasing your feeling into the air above you. Notice how your body feels without holding this feeling. Now I want you to reach into the air and grab it again, squeezing it tightly for 5 more seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release it again. I want you just to continue squeezing and releasing until it becomes smaller and your mind and your body are more relaxed. Children really love this activity because it really helps them just to have a tangible way that is a safe way to release those feelings they're having. When I first became a counselor, one of the activities that people were recommending was punching a pillow or punching a punching bag. While this kind of activity can be helpful at releasing your emotions, I don't recommend it a lot with kids because I don't want them to think that to release their anger they need to be hitting someone. Um, so that's just kind of what I've learned, is that we want them to be able to release it. So it's okay to clench your fist, but what are you going to do with that clenched fist? We're going to put our feeling in it, and then we're going to release it. Finally, we're going to talk about some parent tips. So, home devil and school angel. I love this one. So, if your child is great at school, but then they're a terror at home, don't blame yourself. You're actually doing a great job. Research shows that kids who are, who behave really well at school, but don't always behave at home actually do better in the future in the long run. I know it can be really stressful for you as a parent, but it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Something that can improve your relationship with your child at home is just to build a connection with them, really do things to spend time with them. I know that we all work and we work hard and we come home and we're tired, but it's really important that you just give your kids a few minutes every day just to bond with them, just to talk to them, to ask, to check in or to talk about something fun. Maybe have some fun questions that you keep around the house at the dinner table. Some strategies that we're going to go over is don't ask questions you already have the answers to, keeping it simple, using a team approach, and then finally we're going to talk about school concerns. The first strategy is not asking questions you already have the answer to. So the example here is, your kid takes some candy that's not theirs to take, and you saw it in their mouth. You knew they took it. Maybe you were saving it for dinner for a special treat. So you still ask them, "Did you take the candy?" Well, you already know the answer to that. Most adults are looking for a confession and they're wanting their child to take responsibility and to apologize. And sometimes they will take responsibility and apologize right away, but oftentimes they're going to flip their lid because their amygdala won't let them. That fight, flight, or freeze is going to get in the way, and they may give you a lie. They may say, "No, no, no, I didn't take it," for whatever reason that happens. So instead, say something like, "I left some candy on the counter that was going to be a treat for the whole family after dinner. I noticed that some of the candy is missing, so we won't be able to have our treat this time." And leave it at that. That's more of a rational answer that you can give them. The next one is keeping it simple. Don't show all your cards. This one is really hard. Although it's, you know, important to have consistency and fairness with your children about boundaries, it's equally important to keep directives simple and straightforward. I think boundaries and consequences are very important in a family, but directives being simple and straightforward are another. Giving your child a whole list of chores that they have to complete today, they might remember one. So it's more important to maybe write it down on a list or give them one at a time. Here's an example of don't showing all your cards. So you tell your child they want to go to a friend's house. You need to clean your room today or you can't go to your friend's house tonight. So basically, you've given them a threat. If you don't clean your room, you can't go to your friends tonight. So this one, especially with teenagers, they're starting to think logically. And so in their brain, they're going to think, well, okay, I don't want to clean my room. So I'm just going to go in my room and get on my Xbox. They didn't say I couldn't do that. They just said I couldn't go to my friend's house if I didn't clean my room. So you weren't clear, so they win. So a better way would just be to say, you need to clean your room today, period. They say, can I go to my friend's tonight? You can say, you need to clean your room today, period. Later, check in with the progress. If you notice that they've logged into Xbox, this is your opportunity to deal your card. And then you say, no Xbox until your room is clean. So you win in that statement. Your kid doesn't win. So sometimes this gets really hard because you have to be able to think fast about what to do. The next one is about using a team approach. At work, I have a really, really awesome team. There's now 6 of us on our team. We started as 4, and now they are 6. And we really think of our team as a team. We're one unit. And so in our team, we have boundaries, we have some team rules, and we have things that we do if somebody's breaking the rules. So here's some examples of ways that as a family, if you do this, it kind of helps you think as your family as one unit instead of you being the boss and they're the kids. It's you're the captain or the co-captains, depending on your parenting arrangement, and the kids are the players, but you're all part of the same team. Because if I'm the coach and you're the players, if the players win, then the whole team wins. And so, as you're part of this team, make a list together of what some of the boundaries and some of the team rules are. Obviously, some things are going to be non-negotiable with your children. That's just part of being a family, but they can help create some of the rules. Things such as we use kind words with one another. We listen to each other respectfully. We don't use electronics at the dinner table. And that way, if everyone comes up with those and everyone agrees to them, when someone breaks them, there's just a simple, hey, in this family, we use kind words. And instead of saying you, we are now we. And I think that we really changes it in a mindset. It can also be fun. So Friday night can be pizza, movie, or game night as a reward for the team's hard work throughout the week. This part's kind of about school concerns. This will cause me the most stress as a parent. When I had children in school, we didn't have when they first went to school, we didn't have access to their online grades. The only way we knew how they were doing in school was either looking at papers they brought home or when they got their report card or if they got a progress report. Then all of a sudden we can all see our kids' grades and we can see them any time of the day or night. And I can remember when I first had this access, I thought it was going to be wonderful. But here's what happened. I checked them too often. And then I made a few mistakes a couple of times of sending my kid a text throughout the day and saying, I noticed you're missing 5 assignments. What's going on? Or you're failing math. We're going to have to talk about this. Well, I didn't realize how much stress that was causing me because I was checking it too often. And I was getting upset about something that maybe the teacher hadn't put the grades in yet, or maybe my kids had already had a discussion with their teacher about their grades. And really at the point in time when we're looking at their online grades is we need to start as parents letting them kind of be involved in their school activities. I think that we try to get too involved in every aspect of their life and it can cause lots of stress for our kids and it can cause lots of stress for us. So I think it's okay to back off. If they are not doing well in a class, it doesn't mean they're not going to get into college. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get to do things because they need to want to be able to do those things and they have to be involved in their own schooling. However, be involved in their school activities. It's okay to be involved in their activities because I think that's a way to connect with your child in a different way. And I know I was involved in my kids' band activities. And I told them, I don't really care if you want me there or not. I'm going to be there. And they appreciated it later. At first, they're like, Mom, but later they really appreciated me being there. I think that really said something about my commitment to their activities. Have a routine at home and limit how much time they're spending on homework. Because if they're spending that much time on homework, they're not getting rest and they're not really living a balanced time. If they're going on and on and on about homework, it may be a time for a parent conference with the teacher and them to talk about that. Schedule conferences with their teachers at all ages. That's a good way just to talk about what they're learning and to find out, what their kids are doing and how they're doing and really finding out if that teacher's really spending time to build a relationship with your child. It's also okay to let kids figure things out on their own. Sometimes that may mean they fail, but it also means they learn from that. My son recently, he's a junior at college, and this is the first semester. He's a music major, so he has a lot of music classes. But one of the things he told me recently was that he wished I had let him fail. He wished I had not been so involved in his classroom stuff because he might have done better at having study skills had he failed a time or two. Because now he's learning and he's doing well on his own. The other thing on this page about school behavior is really getting too upset about how our kids having behavior problems at school. When they have behavior problems at school, I think it's important to talk to them about it, to find out what's triggering them at school, to have discussions about it. And if it's something extreme, obviously you want to also have some kind of discussion and maybe some consequences at home. But also, it's important to work with your school and your child to figure out what is causing the behaviors that they're having. Some of those strategies about looking at triggers. What is causing that? Is there something that's causing them stress or making them feel upset or worried? So putting it all together, really the first thing is all about prevention. First, teach kids about their brains. Use the hand model that we learn and about the upstairs and the downstairs brain. Then you can teach them about flipping their lid. Then teach them how to recognize when they're escalating and make connections with them. Right brain to right brain. And finally, teach your student all kinds of ways to regulate their own emotions. All of those strategies or any of the other strategies that you may have. Teaching this starting early and often will help prepare students for the times when life becomes stressful, when a crisis happens, and for overall wellness and good health. Surprisingly, this is going to help you as an adult as well. We all know that we need all the practice we can get. I think the one thing that you can go and research on your own are all different kinds of breathing techniques. There are so many different things that we can do with both young kids and old kids that'll really help them just learn to breathe. And I think when we learn to breathe is if we're practicing that often, when we're not upset, when we're just doing okay, then when we are upset and our lids are flipped, it's going to help us get to that strategy more quickly. And learning to breathe in and out can calm our bodies really quickly. And I have kids say, well, that doesn't help me. Well, if it's not helping them, that means we're not practicing it enough when they're just calm. But there are things like smelling the wildflowers and then blowing the dandelions, or smelling the soup. So you're breathing in through your nose and then blowing out the spoon to cool it off. So things like that. There's all kinds of different ways to learn breathing. You can teach them to trace the corners of their table. At school, sometimes we teach them four square breathing by tracing the corner of their desk. So they draw a line up one side and breathe in, and then another line and then breathe out, and then draw a line again and breathe in, and draw another line in and breathe out. So kind of four square breathing, counting in their brain. So these are just multiple ways that they can learn to regulate their emotions. Here are some resources that might be helpful. I think that they're going to send these out. They'll also be available on the Parent University website, I believe, later on, but I know that they will be emailed to everyone that was participating today. There is a book called Flooded that I referenced throughout the slideshow, and this is where a lot of this information comes from. And Flooded is a great book that really is easy to read, and it has tons of just different strategies and activities that you can use as a parent. It's also something that we use with teachers and staff. There is a Google folder with information from today. These slides are in there, as well as some different activities about the brain. There's a book that you can read. There's a coping thoughts worksheet, a Gottman's feelings wheel. There's a get excited about the brain coloring book. The last thing is some resources from Big Life Journal. They also have some resources for you about regulating and learning about your brain. My information is below. My email is laura.blatzheim, that's how you say my last name, at risd.org, and my phone number is also on there as well if you want to call and leave me a message and talk about anything. I've really enjoyed meeting with you today, and before, I guess I'm going to go back one slide. Before we go on to this slide, is there anything in the chat that I need to answer?
Feel free to unmute yourselves, attendees.
You hear me, Jonah?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good, good, good. Well, thank you for tonight. No, this was great. I just want to say thank you to everyone. Great presentation, and thank you for helping me with all the technical issues. I am on the road, but I wanted to catch this particular one. I know that it's been on our calendars. Barry's great about putting all of the Parent University sessions on here. So I'm so glad that I could make tonight. And just thank you to everyone for this particular one. It was great. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. We're glad that everyone was able to come tonight. I enjoyed presenting this. So please reach out to me if you need anything or have any questions about it.
Mr. Poland said no questions. No questions. Well done. Thank you. And it's been very helpful. Many thanks. And if y'all have time to just do the exit survey, I am going to type that in so that if you don't have access to your phone, you can just click the link that I am typing in the chat. And it's pretty short.
Thank you so much to everyone that attended this evening, and also to Laura Blatzheim. I enjoyed your presentation very much, and I look forward to attending more of your presentations. And it was so wonderful to learn about your parenting and your children as well. Thank you.
Thank you.